Hey Ottawa, welcome back to another week where we talk about all things real estate related. This week, the May numbers are in, so we're going to shoot our monthly market update. First, we're going to take a look at what's going on in the market this year versus May of last year. Then we're going to take a look at what's going on in the market month by month. And finally, we're going to take a look at what do we see the market doing in the next couple months and near future. So let's start off and take a look at the May numbers. So the average price of a home in Ottawa last month was $677,000. That's up almost 10% from last year. The sold to list price was at 106% of asking, down about 3.5% from last year. The units sold was 2,300, was actually down 20% from last year. And the days on market was 12.8 days, up 14% from last year. Now let's take a look at these same numbers based on the style of home. For detached homes, we had almost 1,300 sales, the average price being $762,000. Semi-detached, only about 150 sold. Average price being $690 was actually up 20% over last year. Freehold townhomes, 478 sold, average price at $592. Condo townhomes, 199, average price of $469. And condo apartments, 259 units sold, average price $465,000. But like always, looking at the year-over-year prices does not tell the whole story. So let's dig in the month over month, what's really going on in the Ottawa market and where are we headed. The real estate market in Ottawa and Canada the last couple of years has moved very fast. And one of my biggest issues with people showing the stats year over year is it not telling the whole story at all. So let's take a look at the average price month over month. So while we know we've seen a 9% increase over May of last year, if you take a look, we've actually seen a price decrease over the last 2 months. The market peaked at $716 as an average price in March, and at May it's at $677. Now you're going to see a very similar trend happening this year versus last year, where we saw the market peak in March and the numbers started to come down. Next, we'll take a look at the average sold to ask ratio, where we're going to see a very similar trend this year and last year, where we saw the sold to ask ratio skyrocket between January and March, just to come back down the months following. We're seeing a very similar trend here, maybe even a little bit quicker, as the average sold to ask ratio dropped from 113% to 110% over March to April last year, and 112% to 106% in May of this year. Next, we'll take a look at the average days on market, where last May it's at 11.2, and this year it's at 12.8. We're also seeing a very similar trend in this graph. Now the biggest difference that we're going to see is actually the units sold, and this is the one that you want to pay the closest attention to, and I believe that this is the one that's really going to show us where the market is heading. So while the price trends are very similar, the units sold, you can see very different. Where the amount of homes sold last March, April, and May were 2,900, 3,000, and 2,900. This year we're 2,300, 2,300, and 2,300. And the amount of homes being listed on the market is a very similar trend to last year, whereas the amount of homes being sold is significantly less. So what does that really mean for what's going on in the market, and why am I saying that you should really pay attention to these numbers? Well, because we're seeing a lot less homes selling, but we're actually seeing about the same amount of homes being listed. And that means that inventory is rising. And while we haven't seen much of a decrease in price, and we're very similar to last year in that regard, we're seeing a lot less homes selling, which means that pretty soon homes are actually going to start to need to drop their prices when people are in a position that they need to sell. So let's take a look at the average listings week by week over the last 4 years against the average solds by week over the last 4 years. So when taking a look at these graphs, you can take a look at green being 2022, red being 2021, and blue being 2019. Obviously, the orange is 2020, so it's a bit of an outlier. But we took a look at new listings by week, and minus a couple of weeks ago where we see a massive drop in new listings, that being the Ottawa storm, you can see that we're actually pretty on par with new listings by week for this time of year. So when taking a look at the units sold by week, you can see a big drop off where we had the Ottawa storm. But even without that, you can see that we're selling significantly less homes than usually we are around this time of year. So even though we haven't seen a big decrease in price yet, we are seeing a massive increase in inventory, and we're seeing a lot of sellers that are actually denying offers that we're receiving, who will eventually need to sell and are going to have to take the new prices that are offered to them. So I think the biggest discrepancy that we're about to see in the market that we haven't seen yet is that the home prices haven't come down much yet because a lot of sellers are actually rejecting all offers they receive, believing that they can still get more for their home based on past prices. But as inventory continues to rise and less homes continue to sell, the sellers that need to sell are gonna have to start selling at these new prices, which is gonna bring the average home price down significantly. Now we'll take a look at the last few weeks of what we've seen in the market. So these are stats that my team tracks every single week. First, we start off with new listings by week, along with conditional sales, firm sales, price decreases, and cancellations. So you can see that we had 985 new listings this week, but 252 cancellations. So there's 252 sellers who decided to cancel their listings because they did not sell. You can see that the number has risen significantly over the last few weeks in cancellations from 170 to 260 and 252, along with the price decreases from 136 a couple weeks ago to 235 this week, where the amount of homes sold is raising only slightly and the amount of new listings is also raising slightly. So a bit of a disclaimer when looking at these numbers is that there is going to be some overlap. Some of these 252 cancellations are actually going to be part of the 985 new listings, and they're also going to be part of the new sales. Because a lot of the times what's happening now is sellers are pricing their homes low for a bidding war, not receiving the offers they want, they're canceling, they're relisting at a higher price, and either selling or becoming one of those price decreases that we've also seen. This is why I'm predicting that we're actually going to see a pretty significant decrease in price over the next 30 days than we've seen the last 30 days, because a lot of sellers aren't selling for low because they're not selling at all. Eventually they're going to have to sell and the numbers are going to start to come down. But that's also going to change as we're going to start to see cancellations rise from sellers who are only taking advantage of the hot market and they're not relisting, they just see the home prices going down and they're not selling, which will bring inventory down. We're also going to see more buyers come to the market as we see home prices decrease. Another big thing we're not talking about that really needs to be talked about is the mortgage rates. We saw the Bank of Canada increase the interest rate by 0.5 last week, which also hurts the borrowing power of all these buyers, which is also going to have a negative impact on prices. Taking a look at the market on what's been going on and trying to predict what we're going to see in the future is something that I could talk about all day, and it's something that we talk about back and forth in the office every single day. So if you have any questions about what's going on specifically in your market or when is the right time to buy and sell for you, you can always send me a message or give me a call directly. There's always a lot of factors that play into these things, and we are in a bit of unprecedented times. But it is following closely the amount of homes being listed versus the amount of homes being sold and the cancels and the relists that are all going to tell us where we see the market going in the future. The interest rates and all that stuff is definitely a factor playing above that, but specifically in Ottawa, these are the things that we follow and how to expect what we're going to see in the future. So thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you found it helpful. I'll see you next week.